Hello everyone and welcome back to this English lesson. Today we're doing comprehension and summary skills with my teacher, Miss Rachelle Bezuidenhout, and our student, Rachelle Bezuidenhout, and myself, from Hoërskool Rustenburg. Let's get into it.
Hello guys, welcome to lesson 7 for English FAL. Unfortunately, our other student Layla is experiencing technical difficulties today, so we will only be the three of us today. Let me share my screen and we can start with the lesson. Okay, slideshow. There we go. Can you see? Good. Okay, comprehension and summary skills. People, now you have done many comprehensions and summaries in your life, but I don't think anyone has ever discussed with you how to set a paper for this and what we do when we set a comprehension test and what kind of questions you can always expect. And it's important to know this in order to answer the questions as best you can. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through the steps for answering a comprehension with you, and then we are going to look at the different types of questions for a comprehension, and then quickly have a look at how a summary is marked so that you will know how to do a summary as well. Okay, the comprehension in 10 steps. Step 1, start by scanning the comprehension. That means to read it very quickly just to get the gist of it. Okay. Marley, when you receive your paper 1, how do you go about answering your comprehension? Do you just read it and start answering the questions?
No, I read it and then I read the questions and then I read it again and then I answer the questions.
Okay, that's a good start. So step 1, I want you to just scan. I want you to just have a very quick look. When you receive your papers, the first thing I want you to do is quickly scan that comprehension. Just look at the headings and maybe the first sentence of each paragraph. Then, during the reading time, I want you to write the formulas for the active and passive reported speech and concord so that you don't get confused with those later on, so that you know them and have them there pinned down in your paper 1. Then, step 2, when your time has started, I want you to read the text thoroughly with maximum concentration. Don't underline or highlight anything yet. Just read it as though you are reading it for information, not to answer questions for a test. Step 3, read the questions so that you know what to look for in the comprehension test. Step 4, read the comprehension again, this time underline, make notes, highlight. Now you have the set of questions in your head. So you go back to your comprehension and you highlight where you find the answers or where you see something that is important. Then step 5, start answering the questions. Now step 5, 6 and 7 go together. Step 6, when attempting to answer a question, always look back to the text and make sure your answer is text-based, even when they are asking for your own opinion. You go back to the text and check that what you are saying is in line with what is said in the text. It's relevant to the text. Okay, many of the answers you will find directly from the text. We will go through the types of questions now. So make sure that each of your answers is text-based. Remember, in the comprehension, they will tell you refer to paragraph 1, refer to paragraph 2, and so forth. So go back and before you answer that question, reread paragraph 1 and make sure that your answer is text-based. Then, rephrase your answers so that you use your own words unless specifically asked to quote. Make sure that you write enough. Look at the mark allocation. People, even if a question only counts 2 marks, write everything that you know. Okay, make sure that you don't just lose marks because you haven't written enough. Answer the question as fully as you possibly can. Step 8, Now that you have answered all the questions, read the text again and ensure you understood everything right. People, now you will see the text in a different light. So reread it and make sure that you understand the whole thing as a whole. So how many times have you read it now? You started by scanning, reading the text thoroughly. Then you read the questions, then you read it again, making notes and highlighting. Then you would have read each paragraph again during answering the questions, and now you are going to read it for a 5th time. People, you can't possibly answer questions and comprehend a text fully if you've only read it once or twice. Okay, so you have to read it many, many times, and it won't take you that long. It's only about 600 words in length. Okay, step 9. Go back to the questions and ensure you have followed the instructions. Remember quotation marks, check that you have used consecutive words when asked to do so, etc. Make sure that you follow the instructions for the questions. Then step 10, do the rest of the paper. Afterwards, come back and reread everything and check that your answers are correct. People, your paper 1 counts 80 marks, 30 of which comes from the comprehension. And that is also where you make up marks that you might have lost in language. So doing your comprehension properly is very, very important. Okay, we will discuss the steps again at the end of the lesson. Let's just have a look at the different types of questions. Okay, a comprehension counts 30 marks. There will always be 2 texts. The one will be written, and it will count about 24 to 26 marks, and the other one visual. They do not have to relate to each other, even though they mostly do. One text will, for example, be about road safety, and then the other one, the visual one, will be 2 people fastening their seatbelts or whatever. Now the reading length, it will be about 600 to 700 words. And the focus, the text B, the focus will be on the visual information, not the words in the text. Okay, there will be 1 open-ended and 1 multiple choice question in your comprehension. Open-ended means you have to give your opinion on something, but it must still be text-based. Okay, then there are various types of questions, and they will all be set in such a way that all the cognitive levels are tested. Okay, cognitive means what you think with your brain. Hey, cognition means to understand. So the cognitive levels are levels of difficulty. Levels 1 and 2, 40% of the total. So 40% will just be name, list, describe, explain, that sort of thing. Then level 3 is also 40% for the section, and levels 4 and 5, 20% for the total section. Okay, you will see what levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are just now. Points to consider. You should use standard language, avoid contractions, slang, colloquialisms, vulgar language, and for open-ended questions, no marks will be awarded for yes, no, or I agree or disagree. People, a good tip that I always give my learners is that when they ask you, do you agree with the following statement? You say, yes, I agree with the statement that, and then you repeat the statement because it will focus your answer. Okay, even though you get no marks for that, it's important that it's there because your answer won't make sense if it's not there. Okay. Now, let's look at the different kinds of questions. Literal, the information from the text, for example, name the, list the, identify the, describe the, relate the. These questions are directly from your text. And then at 2, reorganization and analysis, synthesis, or organization of information. For example, summarize the main ideas, state the differences or similarities. Now, people, level 1 and 2 account for 40% of your comprehension marks, and they can be found literally in the text. At level 2, you just have to sometimes reorganize the information. Okay. Level 3 is inference. When you infer something, you have to know what they said without them directly saying it. Like irony, for example. You have to be able to identify irony. This means engagement with information in terms of personal experience. For example, explain the main idea. What is the writer's intention when he says that? What do you think will be? Explain the figure of speech. We don't just have to know figures of speech for poetry and literature. We also need to know the figures of speech for the comprehension part of the language paper. And level 3 also counts for 40%. So if you are just able to do level 1, 2, and 3, you already have 80% of your comprehension covered. Now, level 4 is evaluation, judgments concerning the value or worth. Do you think that, or discuss critically? You know those questions, people. They are called open-ended ones, where you have to say, do you think this passage is appropriate for grade 12 learners? Or discuss critically the writer's opinion on this or whatever. And then level 5 is appreciation. That is where you assess the impact of the text. Discuss your response to the language usage, for example. Okay, now we will discuss this in detail in the following slides. Okay. The comprehension and summary skills contextual questions, they are used for a variety of selected text in the language paper and to assess the language competency and gauge the extent of the insight and depth of understanding of the text. Dube, how do you ensure that you understand the text when you read a comprehension?
I ask myself questions to make sure that I understand what I'm reading, and I try to read it multiple times.
Yes. Okay, people. So when you are doing a comprehension like this, the first level questions will be the things that you can get directly from the comprehension, and there's no excuse really to get them wrong. Because if they say, for example, our story takes place from Johannesburg to Pretoria, and they ask, name the settings of the story. Getting that answer right is quite easy, hey, because you just have to go and look back to the text and find the answers there. You don't even really have to understand the text that well to find the answers, hey. So questions for contextual, the first level questions. Name, state the facts, identify the reasons, list the point, describe the place, relate the incident, episode, experience. These questions are as simple as just going back to the text and finding it there. Okay, now are you allowed to copy them directly from the text? No. Okay, you have to use your own words. Next is reorganization, that's level 2. Questions that require analysis, synthesis, or organization of information explicitly stated in the text. What does analysis mean, Marley?
It means obviously to analyze something, but to break it up in smaller parts and to understand them.
Yes, exactly. So these words, analysis, to analyze something, means to break it down to get the meaning. Synthesis means to put those little pieces back together. And organization means to put them in the correct order. So that is what you do at level 2, is to summarize the main points, ideas, pros and cons, okay, which should be given in the text. Group the common elements or factors. State the similarities or differences. What are similarities, Dube?
There are things that have similar attributes to each other.
Yes, things that are the same, in other words. If I say, what are the similarities between you and Marley, what would you tell me?
We're in the same school, we have the same age, and
Yeah.
we have more or less the same subjects, school subjects.
Yeah. Okay, and what are the differences between the two of you?
She's a girl and I'm a boy. She's
Yes.
quite tall and she has a different eye color than me.
Okay, yes. So with similarities, you looked for qualities that were more or less the same. With differences, you look for qualities that are different. And you can't just say Marley is a girl. That is not a difference. She's a girl, whereas you are a boy. Okay. You can't just say she has green eyes. You must say she has green eyes, whereas you have brown eyes, or you have different colored eyes. Okay, so that's just the tricky part of similarities and differences. You have to say what makes them the same and what exactly makes them different. Give an outline of, for example. Okay, people, then inference. That's the next kind of question. When you infer something, you understand it without it having been stated explicitly. Okay. Questions that require a candidate's engagement with information explicitly stated in the text in terms of his or her personal experience. Okay. What do you infer when I say, yo, you must study very hard for this test? What can you infer about the test? That it's going to be?
A difficult test.
Difficult, exactly. Or if I say to you, perhaps you should brush your teeth more often. What am I implying?
You're implying my breath smells or that my teeth are dirty.
Exactly. So to imply something means to say something without saying it. To infer means to understand what a person has said in an indirect way. Okay. So when you infer, you can explain the main idea. In a text, they're not going to say the main idea of the text is this. You have to be able to read the text and then gather what the main idea is yourself. Compare the ideas, attitudes, or actions. When you have to compare something, you state similarities and differences, like we just discussed. What is the writer's or character's intention, attitude, motivation, reason? If I say, for example, I wonder when school's going to start. What is my attitude towards school? I am longing for it. I want it to start again. You must infer what their attitude or intention is. Explain the cause and effect of. If I say, for example, our use of plastic is killing the ocean, and you have to explain the effect of the use of plastic, what would you say?
Ma'am, basically you would have to explain the negative effects that plastic has on the ocean and the sea animals.
Exactly. I said it's killing the ocean, but I didn't exactly explain in what ways. You have to infer. Use your common knowledge to explain how the use of plastic is killing the ocean. And then say whales are swallowing it. Other predators are mistaking plastic bags for jellyfish, that sort of thing. Okay. What does an action, comment, or attitude reveal about the narrator, writer, character? People, if I, for example, say that the character hit a dog, what does that reveal about the character? That he's not a good person or an animal abuser. Maybe he's a villain. How does the metaphor, simile, image affect your understanding? People, this is just like evaluating the effectiveness of a metaphor or whatever in poetry. So you also have to know the figures of speech for your language paper. What do you think will be the outcome or effect of an action or situation, where they don't word for word give you the effect, but you have to infer it? True or false questions. People, we no longer ask you, say whether the following is true or false. We say why the following is false. And then you have to go and look in the text for proof that it is false, okay, or that it is true. Multiple choice questions, choose the correct option from a given list, fill in the blanks using contextual clues, questions on visual and graphic literacy. Okay, guys, so these are the questions that have to do with inference, that they don't give you directly from the text and you just have to reorganize. These are the ones that you have to use some intelligence. They give you a part of the picture and you have to fill in the picture as a whole. Okay. Then evaluation, that is level 4. These questions deal with judgments concerning value and worth. These include judgments regarding reality, credibility, facts and opinions, validity, logic, and reasoning. The issues such as the disability and acceptability of, or desirability and acceptability of decisions and actions in terms of moral values. Do you think it's a good thing that government is forcing us to not buy alcohol at the moment, for example? That would be an open-ended question, an evaluation kind of question. Okay, so let's go through the questions. Do you think what transpires is credible, realistic, or possible? What does credible mean, do you think? Dube?
Ma'am, does it mean, is it applicable, or is it?
Yes, okay, credible means like when you, when someone says something, is it from a credible source? Can you give it any credit? Okay, can you believe what this person is saying? Okay, is the writer's argument valid, logical, conclusive? Discuss or comment critically on the action, intention, motive, attitude, suggestion or implication. Do you agree with the view? Now people, this is probably the most important one because that is the one that they usually ask. Do you agree with or do you not agree with? Okay. People, and this usually counts 3 marks. These are 3 marks questions. And can you just write one thing for a 3-mark question? No, you have to write 3 things for a 3-mark question. Hey, do you agree? Yes, my reasons are this, this, and this. 3 things. Okay. Is the character's attitude, behavior, or action justifiable or acceptable to you? Give a reason for your answer. People, now this will look at your own values. For example, there was this cartoon about, in last year's paper, where the one guy stole some donuts from his employer. The employer sent him to buy 12 donuts. He bought 15 and ate 3 on his way home. And they asked, is this character's behavior acceptable? And you had to judge according to your values. And some learners would say, yes, it's very acceptable. He's a plan maker. And others said, no, that's stealing. Hey. Sometimes there are moral gray areas and you have to judge whether the attitude or behavior is acceptable or not. Okay, what does a character's attitudes, actions, motives show about him or her in the context of universal values? People, we each have a set of values, but there are also universal values. Hey, respect, for example, is a universal value. We all want respect. So you must judge the character's actions according to that. Okay, discuss critically or comment on the value of judgments made in the text. To discuss critically means to take it apart and say, well, yes or no, it's working or it's not working. Okay. Then the last one, appreciation. Evaluation means saying it's good or bad. Appreciation means saying, yes, I like it because. And this mostly has to do with the language in the text. Discuss your response to the text. Do you empathize with the character? Is he human to you? Discuss or comment on the writer's use of language. Discuss the effectiveness of the writer's style, introduction, imagery, metaphors, poetic techniques, and so forth. Okay. So this is your appreciation of the written text. Are you able to appreciate written text, or are you not able to? That is what we are testing here. Okay, now I want to quickly get to the summary before we run out of time. People, when you do a summary, the first thing to do is to read the instructions carefully. Look at how many words, how many points, how many facts. Okay, usually you're going to do them in point form. You're going to have to use either 60 or 70 words, and you have to have 7 facts. Now, the best way is to read your summary and highlight the facts. Look at the question that they are asking. They might ask you tips for using less electricity, and then you just highlight that which has to do with electricity usage. You write them down on your paper in your own words, and then edit it until it fits within the amount of words you use. So if there are 3 steps for summary, it's reading the text, reading the instructions, following that instruction by highlighting or underlining, rough work, and editing plus final product. Okay, now let's have a look at the mark allocation. First of all, your facts. You must have 7 points, 1 mark per main point. That's easy enough, hey? Then you get pasala, 3 marks for language. If you didn't quote, okay, each quote that you use will cost you a mark. And that you didn't make language errors. Now, you're not supposed to make language errors here because most of the words that you use will be in the text already, okay? So a summary basically says, give us this whole text in point form in a summarized way. Make it smaller. Give us only what is applicable. So the most important thing is to look at that instruction and then distill it into this text that will give you your 7 marks for your 7 facts plus your 3 marks for language. Okay, and remember not to quote. Each quote will cost you marks. Marley, how do you ensure that you use your own words in the summary?
Ma'am, usually I write down the point and then I write it over and compare them next to each other to see that I didn't use words that they specifically used.
Yes, and you can just replace one word in the text with a synonym, then it's already not a quote. Or change the word order, or leave out or add 1 or 2 words. Okay. There are easy ways to make things not a quote. You can change the punctuation even. Okay, guys, that is all we have time for today. I will see you tomorrow for a poetry lesson. Have a nice day.